Everybody. So there's a specific model computer power supply that is flawed by its design that will fry your PC, and you can still buy it on eBay. We're talking about the Bestec ATX-250-12E power supply. It's a power supply that was found factory installed in many eMachines computers manufactured from around 2001 to 2005. And this power supply has a flawed 5-volt standby rail design that causes it to fry motherboards. I've posted videos on this channel many years back about this unit, and I do have a video demonstrating one of these exact models of PSUs putting out nearly 13 volts on its 5-volt standby rail. I'm doing this video because I was looking on eBay for some cheap power supplies to fix, and I happened to come across this listing right here. So this seller is selling this Bestec ATX-250-12E power supply Rev P7 250 watt computer PC ATX power supply untested. So chances are, if this person plugged this in, it will probably go kapow, because this power supply has, again, a flawed design in its 5-volt standby rail. It uses what's called a 2-transistor 5-volt standby circuit. Instead of using a modern PWM type controller IC, this unit uses a 2-transistor design, and it's actually a pretty bad design. There are many old power supplies out there that use 2-transistor 5-volt standby rails, but this one here, by the way it's designed, it will fail. Usually these only lasted about a few years or so before they started frying themselves and frying the motherboards attached to them. Because these power supplies, the 5-volt standby circuit relies on electrolytic capacitors to regulate the output of the 5-volt standby rail. And when one particular capacitor, and I think it's a 1 microfarad 50-volt capacitor, begins to fail, it begins to dry up because it's exposed to a lot of heat. And then once this capacitor begins to fail, the 5-volt standby rail begins acting crazy on this unit. More or less, this unit does not have overvoltage protection on its 5-volt standby rail. So what happens is when that capacitor starts to fail, the switcher begins to speed up the switching, and therefore the output of the 5-volt standby rail begins to rise, eventually to the point where it fries the motherboard and the PSU fries itself. Lots of eMachine computers manufactured around 2002 to 2003 begun to see massive failures due to these specific power supplies failing and taking out the motherboards attached to them. Now the good news is they can be fixed, well, provided you have advanced electronics knowledge and are willing to work in something like this. The 5-volt standby rail can actually be fixed. You actually have to gut out some of the original circuit and replace it with a new custom designed circuit that employs the use of a Fairchild DM311 PWM controller IC that's designed for a much more reliable 5-volt standby rail. But yes, I want to make this video because, well, these power supplies are still for sale. Even though they are 20 plus years old, they're still for sale. And someone looking for a cheap power supply for their basic build might happen to come across one of these, and I would hate to imagine plugging this power supply into your brand new Ryzen system and frying the motherboard. That'd be bad. Now, to be honest, the other models from Bestec, such as the ATX-250-12Z, the ATX-300-12Z, as well as the revised eMachines power supply, the ATX-300-12E, they're safe. Although they do suffer from capacitor failures like the 250-12E, they won't fry your motherboard typically like the 250-12E does. Another issue some of these units have is a lot of them were manufactured and assembled with a tan glue, which over time becomes conductive and corrosive. Yeah, conductive, not good. And that can cause these units to fail too. But the other Bestec units, usually just a recap, and in cases of the glue, getting rid of the tan glue, these are actually reliable units. But there's this one model, the ATX-250-12E, that you should steer clear of unless you're willing to do massive repairs to it to fix its 5-volt standby flaw. But yeah, you happen to come across these units on the internet? No. Don't buy them unless you're willing to part them out or fix them. Because if you attach them to your computer your computer is, I'm afraid, it's going to be a goner, at least the motherboard, and probably maybe the RAM, and perhaps your keyboard, mouse, and your USB flash drive. So, that being said, be on the lookout. If you see this power supply, don't buy it unless you are willing to fix it. So, anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.